Hey kids, you like games? You like being scared? Then you'll love Fearzine. Fearzine is your premier source for all of the latest in horror gaming. Join their community on Discord and follow them on all of the social medias that you have. And don't forget about their digital and physical magazine. They're currently running a Kickstarter for issue number 3, so head on over to fearzinemagazine.com. That's FEARZINE magazine.com. Right now. Like now. Go. fearzinemagazine.com.
Video games like Postal.
Going postal.
Going postal. New video game. It's called Postal.
There are a lot of people that really wish we would go away, but it's never going to happen.
Their whole premise is so over the top. It's so ridiculous.
There was a video game called Postal, and we just ran around shooting people.
Oh, this is gonna piss off your viewers, isn't it? Oh, well.
Going Postal, The Legacy Foretold. A new documentary about the history of running with scissors. Streaming this spring. Pre-order now. Go to goingpostaldoc.com. That's goingpostaldoc.com. Tell them In the Keep sent you. People break down into 2 groups when they experience something lucky. Group number 1 sees it as more than luck, more than coincidence. They see it as a sign, evidence that there is someone up there watching out for them. Group number 2 sees it as just pure luck, a happy turn of chance. I'm sure the people in group number 2 are looking at those 14 lights in a very suspicious way. For them, the situation is 50-50. Could be bad, could be good. But deep down, they feel that whatever happens, they're on their own. And that fills them with fear. Yeah, there are those people. But there's a whole lot of people in group number 1. When they see those 14 lights, they're looking at a miracle. And deep down, they feel that whatever is going to happen, there will be someone here to help them, and that fills them with hope. See, what you have to ask yourself is, what kind of person are you? Are you the kind that sees signs, sees miracles? Or do you believe that people just get lucky? Or, look at the question this way. Is it possible that there are no coincidences? From Father Graham Hess in the film Signs, 2002. It was this fucking CIA trying to keep us from recording this. That's what it was. I knew it.
Seems like.
So, my friend Diego here is going to tell us all about your wonderful, cool game and all of the things that inspired it. So this is going to be a really, I hope, a fun session. I assume it might get like emotional at some point. If it does, like if you need like a tissue box, or if I need a tissue box, we'll pause and go get those and whatnot. But like, I'm going to try to keep it relatively fun. But yeah, just tell us about who are you, and then we'll get into like where that came from and everything.
Of course. Who are you as me, or who are you the game? Sorry.
You could tell us about you too.
Who
are you, and who are you?
Yeah, who are you? Well, for who are you, it's a fine experience that we were creating since 2023. Actually, we were starting to work on gaming, right? Like on 2021, we started with a couple of guys that I met, and we were huge and with a love on horror and movies and everything that's enigmatic, aliens, UFOs, from shows to the actual stuff, right? So in 2023, we said, okay, let's start learning about this. So we started creating Who Are You? this was actually made for a game jam that happened on each. That was the theme horror game jam, I think the 11th one. And it was like a 3 weeks game jam. And we said, there's nothing around about actually aliens, right? There's not many things on horror on the subject. Like when we check, it was like everything that was happening at the time was zombies, ghosts, and etc. And we said we want to make something real. Before that, we started creating. We are from Argentina, so we started creating like a small game, like trying to learn regarding actual paranormal situations, real paranormal situations that happen in Argentina. So we said, why don't we do, instead of that, we actually start working on this with the actual stuff, with the actual learnings and the actual information that is being provided right before anything actually burst, right? Like, because after that, the hearings were starting, a lot of information were coming, right? And we said, there's nothing and there's no people talking about it. And that's why we actually created Who Are You back then.
Mm. Yeah, the game is one of the. It might be the only game I can even point to, because as soon as you messaged me about it, I think we were in the Fearzine Discord, and I had posted the Steve Mera interview, and you were like, "Oh, this is interesting to me," and I'm like, "What are you making? What are you here for?" But it's the only game that attempts to make something based on quote reality. Like these are the like something that actually reflects the real experience that people report of going through an abduction scenario. Whereas I'd say most video games are kind of silly or like overtly horrific and focused on the aliens themselves. Like Space Marines or some shit like that, instead of what what is the psychological effect of having gone through something like this. So I've just played the public demo that everyone who's listening to this will hopefully go grab on Steam. But you wake up in a house and there's fucking beer bottles all over the place and cigarette butts and there's food out on the counter that's going bad and everything, and I'm like, oh man, I've totally been here before. That's depression, and you guys really captured that very well. And all these half-read books, like self-help books or spirituality and all this kind of stuff, and I'm like, man, this sure does look like someone who's perhaps gone through something very traumatic that they can't explain. So, yeah, I mean, what what was like? What were the experiences that you kind of based this on?
There's been a few things. Actually, we are working with a psychologist advisor.
Mhm.
So there's we divide this in two parts. There's of course the depression and the feelings. Uh, the sound producer and the character creator and me, we had different experiences over the year here in Argentina. Seeing things. I saw something that I can recall to be like a UFO sightseeing experience when I was really like a child back in the 90s. Um, and then I had another situation with some strange objects. I will say strange objects because I can say it is actually what I've seen, but it's what I feel I've seen.
Mhm.
Um, but it's not only about that. It's about like a compilation of different situations. We also work with UFO experts from Argentina. One actually is the director of the let me remember the name. It's the ISER, like the International Coalition for Extraterrestrial Research. So
Mhm.
they are pushing on the declassification of everything right after everything blew up and everything got started being exposed. We actually got together with them. I said we don't need actually only to use our experiences. Of course, our experiences help, and the things that we felt, the things that happened to us while growing up help. But we also want to listen to people, right? To hear what they have to say, to understand what they felt. So that's why we did different interviews. one side was working with the psychologist advisor, so she can actually review what we have and what are the experiences people were having. We have like a public, it's not a public, it's more like a private Google form, right? Where people can actually, in an anonymous way, express themselves on how they felt when this happened. So we are taking all this information, the information from this UFO team that has all the information, not only from Argentina, but from the world. They work with different people around the world, and they also work with a team of psychiatrists that work in abduction cases. So they actually are the ones who interview these when there's someone that says that had an abduction case, to understand what's the limit, right? To understand when there's something real, when sometimes it's something that happened to you, but because of the beliefs that you have and the situations that you are going through your life, make you feel something that is not. And from all those interviews, they understand when there's actually something actually happening, right? Something that actually cannot be explained with the regular methods or the regular science. That's all the information that we actually take to create this story, because this is the story of a family. It's not a story, like you said, it's not actually about, okay, there's a lot of aliens, there's a scary face, there's a huge scream. No, this is a story of about Ray Roswell, hence the last name, Ray Roswell, and the disappearance of his wife, Amanda. Back in the 60s, this happens in the 80s. And we developed this story around family, around um, what the people that been on an abduction situation felt or feels, the actual things that may happen or not, and how the family copes on that situation, right? Because he's left with his only daughter, and he has to live over 20 years not knowing what happened with his wife. So that's how we are building this situation, right? Trying to recreate all these scenarios where about these different situations that people felt, and try to mix all that on the art and the sound production of it. So when you play and you get into that house and you get into Ray's body, you can actually feel things that sometimes is not that easy to explain to others.
Yeah, it's very well. Like I mentioned a lot of the setting and everything, but it seems so deeply inspired by when someone is dealing with loss, and that could be anything. It doesn't have to be an alien abduction or whatever. But I mean, like in any time, especially if they don't know the cause of the loss. So when you're talking from a psychological perspective, like how does someone deal with trauma? And there's the 5 stages of grief, and where you're just getting lost in that cycle of like, depression, and then trying to accept it, but never quite getting to that last step and everything. And it could be it could take a toll on you, like a lot. People lose their minds over far less than having an alien come in your house and steal your wife, or whatever that may be. And it also reminded me a lot of like the origin story of Fox Mulder in the X-Files. 'Cause, like, that's his whole thing, is, like, he witnessed his sister being abducted, and then never quite recovered from that, to the point where he they do touch on it a lot in the show, although there are a lot of, comedy elements and everything. But, he joins the FBI and starts this whole X-Files division because he's obsessed with figuring out what happened to his sister. That's the whole thing, and he's severely fucking depressed. He has no girlfriend, no life, sits in his apartment fucking drinking booze and bouncing a basketball on the floor alone all the time. If he's not working, if he's not, like, constantly chasing a case, he has no idea what to do with his life. So there's this sort of, like, arrested development that can come from that. Um, and so this case with Mr. Roswell and Mrs. Amanda, how did you hear about it? When did this you mentioned that it took place in the 60s, and then the story now taking place in the 80s, but, yeah, where did you come across it?
No, actually, that's like I said, that's a mix of a story. We mix
Mhm.
all these cases and sum this up on
Right.
creating the story ourselves. right? So
Okay.
hearing from different cases, because we didn't want to focus this on one specific case, right?
Right.
Because there's a lot of cases, there's a lot of different situations, there's people we came across with that they say and they tell their stories, but not everyone wants to actually share. So we wanted to get to a common place where there's something that everyone can relate, and at the same time we are telling different stories from different people, and
Mhm.
it's like I said, it's like in an anonymous way, and we try to mix this, creating our own story, but
Yeah.
putting all these things in it. Yeah.
I guess I understood that it is an amalgamation. Like Mr. Roswell and Amanda are not like the real case, but I mean, was there a specific case where this this happened like to a husband who lost his wife, or was it more like you were just taking different elements and sort of just arrived at like that would be the most common scenario, or that would be the the sort of the archetypical scenario to go off of?
Yeah, there's been different cases. So we
Mhm.
were taking out of those different cases, not a
Yeah.
specific one.
Okay.
There's been situations that people were taken, even here in Argentina. There's been even a situation when there's one situation he was not actually taken, but he was actually assaulted by a UFO, and this was a person that lived in the countryside. He had no knowledge about UFOs. He had no DB. He never heard of anything before that, but he had a weird encounter. He ended up with burns in his body. His dog was killed outside at that moment, and those are the little cases that we take because not everyone knows about the Argentinian cases or
Right.
the South American cases in general, right? Yeah, usually when you see TV on where when you see something on Netflix, it's more everything revolves around the US or Europe, sometimes Asia. It's not even that common to hear things from Asia. That is not comical, right? Because sometimes you see a lot of comical things.
Mhm.
um but yeah, for this specific situation, we wanted to create something that revolves around many things and not just one specific case, because we want to honor all these different stories and all these different feelings and situations people were having.
I think that the fact that it doesn't, seem to doesn't appear to occur in other places, right? Like, I mean, first of all, you're just going to see more media, period, out of the United States because we're making a lot of TV shows, we're making a lot of movies, we're making a lot of games in the states, and then we also have like we've had this tradition of blaming everything that we don't understand on aliens or on the Air Force, now the Space Force in particular, since since the 40s. Basically, from the moment that the Army covered up Roswell on, it's like there's always this conspiracy story that the government's involved in it, or or it's aliens, or it's from outer space because the Air Force was such a big thing in the zeitgeist. Um, Whereas, like, you do hear stuff about South America, more so from Brazil, I would say, than Argentina in particular. But then instead of blaming it on aliens, they blame it on the US government. They're like, "Oh, it's them. They're flying jets over the head and all this kind of," which is partially true. I mean, there have been operations in South America since we've had a military, which is horrible. But it's like, you would hear people talk about UFOs in Brazil, and they wouldn't say the word UFO, they'd say CIA plane or something like that, and they half the time, that's what it was. But then half the time, it's like, "Why are the CIA here flying shit over, chasing things that they don't understand?" And the question is it all just, like, political control, or is it also that there's this UFO phenomena? Um, but in Argentina's case in particular, you don't see a lot of it, like, in the news or in the media or in movies and stuff. There's not a lot of stories telling about that. But if you go on like X UFO or whatever, it's like a huge percentage of UFO sightings are like from farms or whatever in Argentina, where someone's like got footage of something that they think is a UAP, and it's oftentimes, or at least from what I've seen recently, you keep seeing this like orb sort of phenomena that like reminds one of like the Ezekiel's aliens, the wheels inside of wheels thing, and that's a lot. It's like it's hard to tell these days what is, a deep fake or AI generated versus like a real sighting, but it's just a lot of it coming from Argentina. So, yeah, that's all very interesting. And it leaves the question, like, what is the phenomena? When I was talking to Barry Fitzgerald and to Steve Mera, they're sort of the opinion that, like, there is a phenomena that can kind of be the source of all of the different things. So when you don't hear things that is like from Asia, in particular, about UFOs, they don't really have a tradition of worrying about UFOs the same way that the Western world does. They may report a similar phenomena and call it something completely different. They don't say it's an alien. They don't say it's a UAP. They just say it was a jinn or a spirit, or they don't say shit because the government tells them they can't believe in anything anyway. And that's all a factor to consider too. It does appear to be a worldwide phenomenon, but what it gets called, what it gets reported as, is wildly variant depending on what culture, what religion you come from. Some people see the Virgin Mary, or they see an angel, or they see a demon. Some people see an alien in their bedroom, but they're all reporting the same stuff happening to them. Like it felt like it could read my mind. It was speaking to me telepathically. It took me up into the sky. You start digging into like the Book of Enoch, right? And it's like that the angels took me into a ship in the sky, and we were floating, and I could see the entire universe and all of the stars and look down upon the earth. And like, man, that sounds a lot like Fire in the Sky. Like, if you did they watch the movie Fire in the Sky when they were reading the Book of Enoch? But yeah, what is it that personally got you all obsessed with this stuff? You're listening to KEEP in the Keep. Please take a moment to tell at least one other person how much you enjoy the show. That's right. Grab that link and send it to that buddy you're thinking of who you know would be interested in what we're talking about right now. Maybe post it somewhere. I know it seems scary, but you can do it. I believe in you. Don't hesitate to leave a comment and a 5-star review, a like, wherever you're listening. And if you want, Patreon supporters for this show get episodes early, access to our secret Discord channel, chances to suggest questions to our guests, our games, and whatever else I can do for you. Every little bit helps. This podcast directly supports my ability to do what I love and take care of my growing family. The link is in the show notes. Thank you, bless you, stay in the keep.
It's been a lot. I mean, I feel it's funny because I feel like I had this feeling since I was born. I remember telling my mother, "Hey, I'm not from here. I can be actually an alien." When I
My
was like
brother told
7
me that
months
he
when I
found me in a cornfield and cut my antennas off and brought me home when I was a kid.
that can be
I
right.
think he was just being an ass.
But yeah, I remember doing all that. Of course, my mother got mad and said, "Well, I don't have relationships with aliens, so you're human." But I've been like that all my life, and then after I found out about the X Files, when they started airing the X Files, I got more obsessed with that. Started watching. I'm a big and a huge movies fan, so I started watching movies like because in the 90s you didn't have much access to information, right? So all the information I could get on 94, 95 when I was like 9 or 10 years old, it's like just getting information from out of movies or watching Close Contact of the Third Kind, watching Taken afterwards when there was a series, watching the X Files, and I was always more involved in the actual investigations, right? Like the approach that you can see, even if it's comical, there's a lot of conspiracy theories and stuff on the X Files that you can actually see, and there's things that actually are being talked about like right now, like cryptids and all the stuff that you were seeing back then, right?
Right.
You were seeing things back then, and you had the option to actually believe or not. And I always choose to believe because I want to believe, as your poster says. So yeah, so it's been like that. And after that, I've been doing a lot of research when we had access to internet. Like the first thing that I was trying to look for was why this is happening, right? Um, I always say that I have this weird energy, or it's like a paranormal side of me. Like I've experienced different things, not only UFOs. I had my experiences with the Hatman, with many things that among time I realized that they were actually could be real, and were real because I felt them real. Things like seeing people in front of me while I was sleeping. A lot of things that happened to me that the common people, let's say, won't take as something real, and sometimes may laugh about it. But I always said, well, I don't care. This is real for me. I feel this. I felt this. I know what I felt and what I saw. So I want to speak up and say more about it. That's why
Yeah,
I'm always the one, right?
yeah. No, I think that that's a big part of the research that's currently being done with Project Doorway, was talking about how people, they do these experiments, psychology experiments, parapsychology experiments, or whatever, and then they just grab like a random group of people. They find nothing, and they're like, throw it out. But the key is that you have to work with folks who have the sensitivity, right? And isolating that from someone who's schizophrenic, although we could have a whole conversation about what that even is. But yeah, like you don't appear, at least so far, to be clinically insane. Seem like you can run a business and make a video game and hold a conversation. I don't think you're necessarily the guy in the grocery store who's telling me that Hitler was the second coming of Christ and we're all fucked over because we rejected Jesus the second time and all that. Yeah, although there are those people, and trust me, I'll sit there and listen to them. I don't necessarily agree with what they have to say, but like, I mean, maybe there's some nugget of information in here that this guy's tapped into. But yeah, being emotionally sensitive or even open-minded to the idea that you are seeing what you're seeing, because it could be simply that someone does have an experience, does see, does hear, does feel something, but doesn't acknowledge it because it doesn't fit into their psychological profile. I mean, if you've been raised your entire life to think that if you see anything like that, it's a demon and you're going straight to hell for being accessible to it or whatever, you're probably just not going to open your fucking mouth about it. Just deny it in your own mind until you believe that it wasn't there. Conversely, you could also be someone who's just way too open-minded and you believe everything that you hear, believe everything that you see, and you fall into the trap of not being able to sort out what is real versus what isn't. Um, I don't know where you fall yet, but we'll find it out, hopefully. Um, but it's so cool though to speak to other people who are, like, hey, I felt like this since I was young. I have something kind of like innate in me. I think personally for myself, I was probably like predisposed to be sensitive to whatever. I mean, I had a medium on the podcast a while back, and she told me straight to my face, like, no, you're like an empath. Like you have like a really innate ability to like understand emotions. And that is like a precept to something, like the people talk about telepathy. I don't necessarily hear voices in my head or anything, but I'm just saying, like, I appear to be more sensitive to other people's emotions than a psychopath who like doesn't have any empathy at all. Uh, and I feel like I'm perhaps like, according to people who also told me this, like, just on a spectrum of very empathetic to not empathetic at all, way on this side of the chart. Um, but I was also like very skeptical, and to the point where I was in the Air Force and I was a scientist in the military. So like I have like this really rigid way of looking at the world for my whole life. Like I was always like, if you can't fucking show me the numbers, if you can't prove it with empirical evidence, I'm not interested. It's just you're making it up in your head. You're, I even down to like religious stuff. I was like, nah, can't measure it. And then I just started to have more and more experiences as I got older that just caused me to be more and more open minded. Um, and I'm not like walking out every night and seeing a UFO, although I wish I do. I do go out every night and I do look at the stars, praying that I'll see a UFO.
I do the
But
same.
then,
Of course.
yeah. But then I might regret it. Then it might be something like your story. But I don't know. But did you ever have like particular experiences that like convinced you more so than not?
Mhm. Yeah. Well, as you said, for example, speaking about people telling you how you are different in certain ways,
Mhm.
or you have this special empath ability.
Mm.
I'm like my father's wife. She's a parapsychologist.
Mm.
Um,
That's
the
useful.
first, yeah, the first time I saw her, she said to me like, "You can feel the energy on people, and if you don't train that, you can actually kind of suck the energy of people. And
Mhm.
if there's someone sad near you, they are going that's going to like destroy you because you're going to feel that within you, and you can actually even heal or a lot of stuff that she said back then. I was young. I was like, I don't know. I was a teen, so I didn't took that all of that for granted. Like, yeah, all right, okay, I just met you and you're saying all these things. Um,
Mhm. So
but
it was
among
like
time,
a stranger would walk up and just start spilling their heart to you, just start telling you everything about their life, and they're like, "You just seem like you'll understand." That happens to me all the time.
mhm,
Like,
yeah,
I could be I
yeah,
I
I know.
I have, like, not gone out because of that exactly that,
Mhm.
where I'm
Yeah,
I'm, like, afraid that I'm just gonna get swarmed with something like that, yeah.
yeah, you can actually feel that that pressure sometimes of the energy that you have around. And yeah, it happens to me all the time. Like when I walk into a room, I usually tend to speak with the people that need someone to talk to, rather than
Mhm,
people that doesn't need someone for them to talk to them. Right? Uh, I have like this vision of seeing those things. But what happened among the years was that, like I said, I saw figures even in plain daylight, seeing
mhm.
something floating. Like you can call it many things, like you said. This is actually a funny conversation that we had with Andrea Simondini. That's she's the researcher, the main researcher for the things that she do in Argentina. That, as you said, like things that actually see usually depends on your beliefs, right? So it can be an alien, it can be an angel. I don't know what I saw. I know that I saw something. I was
Mm,
not alone. The person that was with me actually saw the same thing. We were like 12 and we ran away because we were scared of what we were seeing, something
mm.
weird floating in the middle uh, of the street. It was a city. It was not even like a farm or something like that. It was just an empty lot and something floating near a tree in that empty lot. Then I had this situation, like I said, with the Hatman, that I understood later that the Hatman is like a common thing that people actually dream of or see. Uh, and that got me to do some research. But that research is something I did like when I was 20, 25. But I
Mhm.
felt all these things like for years. There was this, I call it the Hatman because it's a common knowledge, but I don't know if it was a
A shadow
Hatman or not.
person,
It was a shadow person, yeah.
a shade. Yeah, there's so The Witcher is, like, my favorite game because it just actually has every version of this in it.
Mhm.
Except for the Hat Man. They don't get around to the Western one, but they have so many different names for all of the things that get reported. It's like, "Ah, thank you. You put it all in one place." So the grimoire for The Witcher 3 may be our best source for paranormal phenomena. But
Yeah,
yeah,
that's right. Yeah, and I
yeah,
had this shadow person follow me for years,
mhm,
right? I
that's
think
fucking terrifying.
it is. I
Yeah,
tell you it is because it started when I was like 7 or 8.
mhm,
And I used to move a lot, right? I always rented. I didn't own a house. So I used to move a lot when I was younger with my mother. So we were like 2 or 3 years in a house and then moved to another. So I can blame it on the house. I thought when
right.
I literally thought that the first time it started that when I move, that would end. But I moved, and one day it returned again, right? Um, but I was always curious, right? I always tried to actually see what that was.
Did you try to
Even
talk to it?
I tried to look at it at in their face because I was never able to see their face because it was like a shadow and it was all
Mhm,
blurry. Uh, but I was always afraid, but at the same time curious, right? So it happened like I don't know. It was
You
like
got a bigger set of huevos than me, bro. Like, fuck no. I would have immediately smudged the whole place, told it to leave. Yeah.
yeah. Well, it was like I don't know, 4 or 5 times over the years, and it's funny and it's scary how this ended because the way it ended, and I always tell this because it's the most realistic thing that happened to me.
Mm.
Because I was always able to see in like when there's sleep paralysis and all of that subject that revolves around that, right?
Mhm.
Um, it was always standing there. One time, the time before it disappeared, actually the second the time before the last time, actually, um, I was just lying in bed and I saw and I felt this presence. This was a big presence, and instead of being scared and trying to step away from that, I actually lifted my face to see at it, right? Like trying to look straight into its face or eyes or whatever it has, because it was, like I said, it was like a shadow and never had a form. And it approached to me and like gave me like a knock on my head, like this,
Mhm.
and then went away. And I had that feeling of feeling that hit or that punch on my head that stayed for a couple of days, and it felt, I mean, I actually received that hit, right? Like something is there trying to scare me or trying not to for me to see that. What is this telling me? And I was scared and mad at the same time because why? I mean, why? First of all, why is this happening to me? Like I said, this was the 90s. I had no actual way to receive information except the weird magazines that we had at the time about UFOs, about Bigfoot, about um, I don't know, different subjects, but nothing really specific. And and the last time I was last like having a normal dream, I used to try. I mean, I try a lot of stuff, and trying to walk on dreams was one of the things that I try a lot, and I was actually able to actually do sometimes. Um, that's why I love the Inception so much, but that's a different topic. But
Mhm.
then, this last time, I was having like a normal dream, and then this presence appeared like behind me, and I knew this was wrong at that specific moment. This was not more a dream. This was a mix of things, uh, and I felt this was my time to actually see and understand and see that face, because I spoke to my mother about this and she said, well, maybe it's your grandfather, because I never knew my grandfather. And she said, maybe it's your grandfather that comes watching you. Okay, that's a weird way of a grandfather to do things, but yeah.
Yeah.
So I tried to turn around. I was standing up. I tried to turn around and see its face, and it like approached to me in way more aggressive way, and I start to felt like a huge pain on one of my molars. It's weird, right?
Right.
So after that I woke up, I had this pain on my molar, and after that and over the years I always had issues with my teeth. Always. On that specific molar, and then I everything started to fail, and I don't know if it's a condition or something, but it got physical. It could be pain, it could be, I don't know, I had, because I always had good teeth under that specific situation. That's
Mhm.
why I say it is actually weird. I never had any situation with that.
Did you ever have like a filling in your teeth or anything like that? Or
Not since that moment. I
okay.
never had something like that uh yet. And that's why I say it's weird. I was like 12 years old. And after that, uh everything was the same, right? It never appeared again. It never happened to me again. I never had any situation like that specific one.
Mhm.
After that, I stopped seeing shadow people. I saw some shadow figures like 15 years away from that situation one time at one of the places that I knew had some weird energy, but that's it. But after that, all I had was this is the only like physical evidence that something weird happened to me. I still don't know what that is. I don't know if I should believe it was that specific situation or not, but for my experience, that's the only explanation for me. Everyone can say different things. Everyone can say maybe I had an issue on my seat before and that triggered that situation. So my brain actually trying to cope on that pain and creating an
Mm.
image. But I don't know, man. And
Mm.
I felt that for really real.
Yeah, I believe you. The it's interesting with the teeth. A lot of the research that Steve Marrow's been doing, centers around like first of all, they whatever it is, whatever we choose to call it, it fucking hates iron. They do not like oxidizing iron. So I keep railroad spikes in front of my door. Like old iron railroad spikes just like laying in front of the doorways and everything. But also like they seem to prey on people who have deficiencies in different vitamins, whether that be iron or in your case, I'm wondering with teeth, is it if it's like a calcium thing? Like maybe if it's sapping your energy, it may have an effect on the way that your body processes some of that stuff. So I wonder, if you're not having like cavities and fillings as a result of it, if it's just pain, that's interesting. I don't know what that means. I don't think I'm going to be able to answer that question. But
Oh, I had cavities, but after that,
yeah.
right?
Mm.
I I had to have the cavities and feelings, but
Should have got iron teeth.
yeah,
Yeah,
I should do that. I'm
yeah.
planning on that. Now that I know better, I
Mm.
will do that. I'll make sure.
Were you afraid of it? Like, did it cause you fear, or was it more like a curiosity thing? Yeah.
No, I was totally afraid, completely afraid.
Mm. Yeah.
But I always felt curious, even if I fear.
Most like mediums at least are gonna immediately tell you like if you're seeing the shadow dude, that is a devil, and you are being haunted by something that wants to sap your energy. I mean, that's what the regardless of how you frame it, like the shadow people are trying to inhabit you. They want your body, and so that they don't have to be a shadow anymore. They're like a lost soul or a demonic spirit that thus covetous a male body or whatever the fuck they said in oh my god, what is that? Uh the movie Ari Aster, Hereditary,
Oh, yeah.
right? Where they're doing this ritual that trying to basically move the demon from the little girl's body to the boy's body, that kind of thing. But it's because the demon wants that. It needs a form that pleases it on Earth so that it can do its work. Um, you ever read the Screw Tape Letters? C.S. Lewis?
No.
Very
I
interesting.
skipped it, but I didn't actually focus on reading that. Yeah.
It's a cool book. And C.S. Lewis is primarily coming from a very, very Christian sort of background, but the story itself is like the perspective of an older demon uh telling his nephew, who is a younger demon, basically like walking him through the steps of how to uh slowly erode away at a person's will until you can take their soul. And whether that be quite literal or if even if it's an alien that's, you know, doing an experiment on you or whatever that is, like the perspective of from their point of view. What is it that they're trying to do? And then they see anything that would pull you away from that, whether that be your faith in God or your skepticism or whatever, like pulling you out of that. That's their enemy. They in the book they literally calls God the capital enemy, throughout the whole thing. They never say the Lord or anything of that nature. But yeah, it's a double-edged sword because at the same time that you're open-minded to it, it's also like allowing it to follow you, allowing it to consume you. Same thing with like poltergeist phenomena. You mentioned like moving from different places, going from here to here, and it follows you. A poltergeist in tradition follows a person. It doesn't haunt a house, so to speak. And almost always that is it could be not. Oftentimes it's a young girl, but it could be anyone who has a deficiency in iron, because like a young girl, when they first start having their periods, they're not taking in the vitamins that they need to replenish their iron supply, and that opens them up to something being able to interact with them. So when people are talking about a poltergeist, it seems like there's this thing in the room that's like causing all this stuff to fly around, when in fact, the person who has experienced this deficiency already has some sort of telekinetic or telepathic ability. And because they're now compromised and they don't yet know how to control it, this other thing is able to cause them to do things outside of their own control. And since they don't know that they have that ability, they don't realize that it's coming from them until hopefully, a priest or a medium or someone who knows what they're doing gets involved and tries to help them. And it could
Yeah.
be super traumatic.
Yeah, and now that you say that, because we were talking about teeth and the iron, but actually I had iron deficiency. I took vitamins, like my I don't know, for the first 8 years of my life. I had to take
Mhm.
these vitamins every day. That's B12, and I don't know which other one was it, but I
Did you
had
have
to.
alcohol dependency at any point?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, me
Around
too.
my around my 20s, I had. Well, I
Yeah.
always keep a bottle just in case, but I'm
Mm.
not that dependent anymore. But yeah. I had a lot of situations, because well, when I was like a baby, I had a situation where when I almost die. I have like two situations of that sort. But I'm still here, so someone or something wants me here, so I'm still around. So
Yeah.
I had this efficiency in my body, and I always had like issues with my stomach issues, some pain, and even I had migraine at some point. So now that you're saying all of that, I mean, I read some of that, but I didn't actually realize or thought about it. So yeah, I guess that's quite a situation.
A lot of people would say, like, you're hallucinating because you don't have all the vitamins you need. At the same time, you could also say the reason why I'm constantly low on this thing that I need is because something outside of me is trying to keep me from being able to cast it away. Um, yeah, and if you like simultaneously have a fucking iron deficiency and are drinking a lot, and you have a fucking shadow person following you around, that's yes, there's some correlation here. There's some lines that intersect with that. I also, yeah, I was a fucking hardcore alcoholic. Like I drank a lot, especially while I was in the military, and like immediately after, I was coping with a lot of shit, and I dealt with it completely the wrong way. But I had the same like vitamin B and iron deficiency, and I had to just take fucking pills and stuff for a long, long time just to get back to like base level, because I wasn't, drinking so much I wasn't eating. Um, and that's what they want. That's that if you look at it that way.
Yeah,
Good.
totally.
Now I've got you fucking right where I want you. And that I was having all of these fucking really deep emotional experiences where I kept feeling like something is outside of me, and it's easy to like, yes, I am to blame for putting myself in this situation, but at the same time, like I feel like I'm not in control of myself. Not just from like I can't go without a drink, but like there's shit that's like affecting me on an emotional level, inhibiting me from being able to like even take that step. And the only way I really got out of it was to like get really spiritual about it. I was like, at a certain point, I'm like, all right, I got to hand this over to something bigger than myself. Like, I can't do this by myself. I need help. And shrinks didn't work. I talked to lots of psychologists, doctors, whatever the fuck, and they're they're not going to help you. Like they're going to try to help you, but like they're not. The answer to your problem is ultimately like, I'm going to use the word spiritual, but it could be just simply something more than what modern medicine offers you. However anyone chooses to interpret that, but you've got to like be open to the idea that if something that is outside of what a doctor would diagnose you with is the cause of your problem, then it's probably something also outside of their their apothecary of cures that is going to fix it. Wild. That's such a crazy story, man. Holy fuck. Are you okay? Like, you a little scarred from all that?
Yeah. Yeah, I've learned to grow from all those situations. And like I said, I
Mm,
started to learn and understand different things on how things happen.
mm,
And at some point, I started to talk more about it. Like I
mhm,
said, I mean, you can either believe I'm not going to follow you to your place and telling you, believe me, I'm not crazy.
mm,
I'm just telling you what I felt, how it felt. It can be many things. I won't say what it is. I will just assume for me how it felt for me, how it is for me, and I will try to express that in many ways. I mean, I used to be a writer. I used to write a lot. I used to do a lot of artistic things because art. It's I don't know how to draw. If you actually look at the actual drawings on the game, little girls drawings, right? Little Maddie. Those drawings are me. That's my actual art. That's
mm,
how I draw, right? So if everyone is interested in seeing how a grown man can draw awful like that, you can see the drawings on my game. Um, but yeah, uh, I felt and I realized that expressing yourself and talking about it for me it helps a lot.
mm,
Um, I've been through many emotional states, right? As you may know, there's a lot of things that we can go over the years. I'm 38 now with a soul of 20, but I still sometimes go to different states of mind or of feelings that I just try to sit and think why things happen, why is this happening. Um, with all the information that's been growing, all these researchers, these experts talking about it, the media, all of the different shows, all of the different ghost hunting situations, um, everything that's available for us right now, it's really good and it actually helps. And it actually helps because people are more open to hear, right? And people are more open to actually believe, even if they don't believe. I mean, I'm not saying that I don't know. I saw a ghost following me around with a blanket on their head. What I'm saying is just things that can happen to anyone, right? It's just how you understand that. We actually had like I said, a conversation with Andrea Simondini about these things, and like you said, you spoke about Project Doorways and all of that, like how every person can feel or express their beliefs in different ways. Like I said, this person back in the farm, they had no idea about what's a UFO. They just live for the farm and that's it. And they saw something that actually caused physical pain, burns, and stuff. Um, we were talking about these the investigations on how aliens or UFOs actually generate on your conscious, on your mind, and this multiverse that you may have in your mind that sometimes you project in front of you, right? So you can project an alien, you can project a ghost, a poltergeist, anything, and but it doesn't mean that it's not real. It's like the USOs. Like you now see that there's UAPs or stuff, USOs actually that come from the ocean. Like in
mm,
Argentina, we have a lot of sightseeings coming from the ocean, the ocean because we are close to that part. Um, but it's crazy, interesting, and fascinating at the same time. And that's why we wanted to create Who Are You in that way and following those real situations, right? Because it's nice to see how people that maybe don't believe can actually experiment a little bit of how we feel sometimes and actually understand those feelings and maybe seeing things with a different perspective.
yeah.
That's great. Mm.
It's one of those things where, like, you're looking if you're looking for help and no one has the answers to the questions you're asking, but if you find other people who at least have the same questions, it's a huge help. I mean, just making you feel less alone with whatever it is that you're dealing with. To have lots of my own perspective. It got to the point where I fully had like a breakdown. I was on the phone with my mom and I was saying like, okay, because my mom is like fucking way into all this esoteric occult stuff, like, and it has been my whole life. She was like solving police cases to do with ghosts and shit when I was a kid, and even with that in front of me, I remained a skeptic. And then when I just exhausted all efforts, like I said, like all the doctors, all the psychology, everything. I was like, okay, I'm ready now. Just start telling me what I need to hear because I have nowhere else to go. Like I don't know how to solve this problem without at least being open minded to your side of things. And then she was like, yeah, I kind of knew this day would come. It's okay. You'll be fine. Like, let me walk you through it. You read these books. I'm like, okay, thanks, mom. So I was really lucky in that regard. Um, I wanted to circle back around to something you mentioned earlier on. Just talking about like feeling like you're from somewhere else or you have something else within you, that kind of thing. One potential explanation, there was this guy named David Jacobs, Professor David Jacobs. He used to be on like Coast to Coast AM and shit like that a lot. But he was kind of the origin of, and they touch on this a lot in the X-Files with the idea of like the alien human hybrids, and he called them hybrids, like to distinguish, like there are hybrids, there are full blown aliens, there's people, and then when they start fucking with like splicing us together, whatever that may mean, it doesn't. Like, I think there's a tendency in sci-fi to like get into they're literally going in and cutting up our DNA or like inseminating Scully with a baby and all that kind of stuff. Maybe, I don't know, but it could also be like a spiritual element to it as well. It could be like you your soul is older, you know, and in the process of reincarnation, maybe, you know, you land on this earth and you're around a bunch of other people who are younger souls or souls that are stuck in a particular plane. Maybe yours is further. Just lots of different ways of putting it. But in his perspective, it's like, no, there are lots of people walking around among us right now, indistinguishable from people who are hybrids. And how he arrived at that, I'd have to dig back into. But like, tell me more about like your experience with like talking about that. Have you talked with the psychiatrists or the psychologists, parapsychologists about like what that experience is, and do they have an explanation for it?
No, she didn't have like an actual explanation. She said like, I feel, because as there's being said, I believe in the genetical aspect, as you said.
Mhm.
For example, my mother is a huge Catholic, but she always has had this special energy within
Right.
her. She actually studied Reiki and different ways to canalize her energy.
Mm.
Um, so she was never a hardcore believer in anything. Really, she was actually a believer of God and all that stuff. But at the same time, she believed there's other forces, right?
Kinda
Uh,
have to if you're Catholic. Like, that's one of the
mhm,
beautiful things about the Catholic faith is, like, you have to be open to a lot of stuff that, you know, sounds crazy actually, but it's
mhm.
probably it's a lens, you know, there's the Christian lens of looking at this stuff and still being open-minded to it. Whereas here in the States, especially in the South, a lot of people are like, anything that's not explicitly laid out in the Bible is not real, and if you bring it up, you're going straight to hell. And that the shadow person is covering up his horns with his hat or whatever. Like, um,
Yeah, yeah, and
yeah.
I always ask her like, why, if you uh say you don't believe in this, if you're a Catholic, why are you saying that there's other energies? Why are you trying to canalize this energy? Like always trying to
Mm,
understand, but then you don't believe in aliens or stuff like that. So that was always a conversation with her. But when I spoke with this parapsychologist, she didn't have an actual direct explanation on that matter. She only said like, you need to take the time to train that energy that you have. Like you need to focus on that because
mm,
it's there, right? If you don't do anything with it, nothing will happen. You still may suck energy people's uh, energy from people without realizing. But other than that, you won't be able to actually do anything with it. Uh, she only said that I had this special light sort of thing. Um,
The Shining.
maybe
Yeah.
even. Uh, but yeah, that's the only thing that she said, and I always remember that because that marked me. I try to. There's like there's the Ouija board. There's like the cup game here
Mhm.
that you lay a cup and you do all this stuff. That's
Mhm.
something that when you are a child and you're a teenager and you have uh no idea of the world, you sometimes try. Um and I remember even trying that. I remember like feeling that I could even be a medium or feeling the energy because I always felt the energy around me. I used to be alone and trying to talk to things I felt were around, never receiving an answer, but I felt the chilling, I felt things were there, right?
Yeah.
But like I said, I was very curious about many things. Never really got an answer. Never actually took the time to understand myself. That's one of the things that I regret because over time, not actually doing anything, like I feel that I lost a bit of that sensitivity, right? Because even if I'm involved or I try to learn or do things, I feel like these things happen actually randomly because
Mhm.
I don't know how to canalize this stuff. I don't want to canalize anything evil or something like that. I will never play with a Ouija board. She said, never touch a Ouija board. Don't do anything about that Ouija board because that's not a game. That's serious stuff. So you don't have to do anything with it. And I do. I took that seriously.
Good.
Uh,
That's good advice. Stick to that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and I've been giving that advice always because I know I saw it things happening while doing that. Even one day at like it was like at this school party when I was in we were like I said 11 or 12 years old, and some guys were trying to do this. Our school was a primary school was like big with two halls on the sides, and on one of the halls it was all empty, and we only had like chairs and a table there. So they were trying to play this cup game. We were just I don't know 4 or 5 kids there trying to do that, doing our own stuff, until some kind of bright light when there was no light at all there just flew and get inside one of the classrooms. And I said, okay, let's stop this. I just left, of course, in fear. But yeah, many things that made me believe that I have something, but never actually search for an actual explanation. I don't know why. Maybe I was not trying to see that it is real. Maybe I was trying to, in a way, protect myself, but at the same time, I'm curious. At the same time, people with me say, don't learn about that because that's going to be dangerous for me. So people always say, if you know or if you all for these things, they are not going to hunt you only. They are going to hunt me or they are going to hunt anything that you have around. If you're taken, if you're abducted, they are going to come for me afterwards. Stuff like that. Things that happen with people I met over the years. But yeah, I'm just taking what I have or what I felt for granted and then just walking by it, not having an actual explanation. Or maybe because I never met someone that can actually give me an actual answer that I can actually trust enough to say, okay, you are the right person. You know this for real.
Mhm.
Maybe you can give me an actual answer, and maybe I'm nothing that I'm feeling is what I'm feeling. Maybe it's something else, but I never met that person yet, so I'm still to learn.
How are you incorporating your own experiences into the game? Like the the experience of knowing fully inside of yourself that like I've experienced this, I'm seeing this, I'm feeling this, and no one else has the answers that I'm looking for. In my case, it was like, and they're all gonna think I'm crazy if I even fucking bring it up. Is a really isolating feeling, and you cope with that however you do. Like you said, avoidance. Like for me, it was just fucking drinking my ass off, smoking weed, all that. I couldn't. It wasn't even like a chemical dependence all the time. It was like I don't want to just live in reality because it's too much. Like it's so fucking overwhelming to constantly feel that way that I just needed to like be numb or like take 10% off, just make it a little bit easier to like get up and just go pretend everything's okay during the day. So I'm curious, like how has that experience shaped the gameplay and the story that you're trying to tell?
Well, it helps a lot because I'm the game designer on the game as well, and actually help with we work with Unreal Engine, so I help with how to set things up and help the developer on setting these things up. So I always keep going and trying and reviewing how things feel, trying to add how I would feel or see that, taking that, trying to mix my own experiences with the experiences that we have and the information that we have. So it's a long process to actually feel, okay, this is showing what I feel, or
Mm.
this is showing not even only my experiences, the experiences of the team. In our team, we had uh, people experiencing things, people actually sometimes even going through different depression states that we want to show that on the game, right? So
Right.
to shape that, it takes a lot. That's why we actually use Unreal instead of Unity, even though it's more complicated and we had no knowledge at all of Unreal Engine or how that work. We were learning back in 2023 on how these things work, but we wanted to we use this because we feel it's the engine that help us shape the way things that the way we actually see that. So I always, when I try to create this the game design for the different situations on the game,
Mm.
I try to be Ray himself and try to feel, okay, if I'm in this situation, how would I feel in this situation? Right? If I'm seeing things, if I'm seeing that my family is disappearing, if I'm alone in a room, and again, one of the things that we talked about with the researches is how the paranormal situations connect with the UFO situations and are actually maybe the same thing. It's all connected, right?
Yeah.
Um, so I'm connecting those things, maybe those things that happened to me. Maybe this shadow people is actually something that was just, I don't know, flying around over the house, drinking Coke and watching me while I was sleeping. I don't know. So I'm trying to add all of that with the different post process that the game has, working very closely with the sound producer. He also had his experiences. So the music, everything has to make me feel something because I
Yeah.
won't be able to make people feel anything if those things doesn't feel real to me, right? So
Mm.
it, it's a big process. hard to
No,
explain, hard to explain, but yeah, it's a big process.
it's very important, like, and I think from the point of view of like trying to craft an experience of any kind, games more so than most mediums, but I mean any art that you're creating, it's the question is like, how does it make someone feel? And you're trying to. It's a fucking tough road. Like same boat here. Like, from the game design perspective, is like I'm always thinking about what is it in here in my heart or my feelings that I'm trying to pass on to someone else. Communication as a whole has this problem where it's like I'm never satisfied with a conversation unless I feel like the other person is picking up on what I'm actually dropping. Like, what am I really saying? What am I trying to get across? And oftentimes, like, just if you could just tell someone the experience, they would understand it at face value right then and there. Or if you could just telepathically put it into your head, you wouldn't need to make a fucking game. You wouldn't need to write a book about it. You wouldn't need to make a movie about it. You wouldn't have to express it in such this grandiose way that other people can understand it, because it would be easy to just feel satisfied with, like, I've got it out. Other people get it. Moving on. Next thing. So it's like a struggle with, I think every great artist has that problem, and they tend to be somewhat emotionally disturbed people. Like you got to be a little bit crazy to be an artist, but it's because you have something in your soul that you're trying to get out to other people, so that they can experience it. We live in a very postmodernist world where, like, I was listening to this thing yesterday talking about like the death of the author. Whereas, like, nowadays, I think a lot of people, even game designers that I've had on the fucking show, got into this big debate about, like, yeah, what was your intention? How do you want this to make people feel? And I think we have this tendency now, because of the postmodernist philosophy that the Western world sort of lives under, like, what I feel is not important. It's what the audience makes of it, and that's okay if someone feels that way. Who am I to tell them what to do with their own art? But even, from a consumer perspective, like they don't seem to care about what the intentions or the feelings of the author, the creator of whatever it is that they're reading, playing, seeing had. They sort of separate those two things. We use that phrase all the time, like to separate the art from the artist. But I mean, like that's like separating the world from God. Like,
Yeah,
it's
totally.
yeah. Like it's like if we are all created by alien overlords who are just watching us for their own entertainment, floating around in the sky or whatever, like, well, their intentions kind of matter in terms of understanding the experience that we're having. Otherwise, like, what are we doing here? And you could just choose to be veiled, and we use that term a lot. Like people, just I'm just gonna ignore all that and try to focus on this. And then you have other people who are like, no, I'm trying to figure out the big mystery. I want to know what's going on up there. If it is aliens, I want to talk to them and see what their intentions are. Maybe they have something nice to say. Maybe they have nothing nice to say. And that's also useful information, because we need to have like a human rebellion, but we'll never do that as long as we have this illusion that they're not there. What's that? The greatest trick the devil ever played was convincing you that he doesn't exist. And that's true. Like,
Mhm.
if there was a devil, I'm not saying that there is or isn't, but, like, if there was, and you don't believe that he exists, it makes it a lot easier for him to fuck with you. Um,
Completely. Yeah.
so, um, circling back around to your experiences, kinda, like, trying to, find different ways to communicate with the thing or the whatever it is that you're trying to find, like the Ouija board stuff. Maybe you're fucking with tarot cards or whatever. I like tarot cards. I don't like Ouija boards. Tarot cards don't scare me. Maybe it's because I understand them better. But like a Ouija board, sort of like a radio, where it's like you're browsing frequencies, and like you could get, you could get a cool rock song, and you could also get something that's like, hey, can I come in? And then the mistake that a lot of people make is like, as soon as they find, ooh, something interesting, yeah, don't like that's the fucking end all. Like you're done.
Mhm.
Like it's
Yeah.
in the. Have you read the Nefarious Plot or seen the movie Nefarious?
No, not that one.
It's a cool, really cool movie. If anybody, I recommend giving it a watch, or read the book that it's based on. It's called A Nefarious Plot. But there's this psychologist who's like go into a prison, and he has to decide. There's this guy who's on death row, prisoner, and he's got to decide if the dude is insane or if he's evil. Like if he's just a bad person. And if he's crazy, then legally they can't execute him. But if he's not crazy, he's just a bad seed, then they have to execute him. And the guy claims to be, he's like, I am possessed by this demon, this ancient demon named Nefarious, or Nefariamus, or whatever, in Latin. And like throughout the course of the thing, like the psychiatrist is totally skeptical. Like he's a complete atheist. And the demon is like telling him, like, oh, well, if you don't believe in me, then you would have no problem with inviting me to come into your soul, right? Because you have nothing to
Right.
lose, just to prove your point. And then he's like, fine, go ahead. And then that's the the trigger of the movie. He's like, oh, well, he fucked that up. He shouldn't have done that. Um, but yeah, like, did you did you ever feel like you like successfully communicated with the shadow that you were talking to, or did you get any information from it, or was it just completely veiled all the time?
No, not really. Actually,
Mm.
I tried, but I stopped myself from
Mhm.
pushing forward because I felt that if I pushed more,
Mm.
something bad would happen, worse than the things that happened to me. So I was always on this struggle of trying to push more, to understand more, to see more. But at the
Mm.
same time, I say, yeah, but there's a limit, right? As
Yeah.
you said, with the Ouija board, there's a limit. And there's a common mistake that not even inviting, sometimes you just get scared of what's happening and you don't actually realize what you are doing
Mhm.
until everything is screwed up. So but yeah, um even though I tried for several years to understand, and sometimes even I tried to call for these things because after I had all these experiences, there was like a chunk of years where I had nothing, right? Nothing specific or nothing that big like it was before. And I was always in the search for feeling this again. Even though I knew that I will be afraid of that, or that is something, maybe it's not right for me to do that, I had this feeling that I had to know, right? That when I was young, when I was a child, when I was growing up, I was not prepared for this. Now I'm prepared. Now I have more tools. Now I have more weapons even.
Mm.
But I can't have access. Why I can't have access? Is that because I have the weapons to actually protect myself? And back then I didn't. So that was always a struggle for me.
Yeah.
Uh, Still I believe, and still I like when I feel energies or when I feel things, I try to get a closer look, but I don't push that too far because of the people I've been around. I mean, at some point I felt like you mentioned Mulder. Mulder is like a good example because there
Yeah.
was points in my life that I felt like him, right? That even though you can have friends, you can have family, they actually don't won't believe or won't understand how you are feeling. So
Yeah.
at the same time, you can be surrounded by a thousand of people, but you're actually alone with these feelings and with these situations.
Yeah.
Um, I wouldn't see myself back then like speaking freely about this on a podcast, for example. And there's
Me
going to
neither.
be a yeah, right? Like
Yeah.
there's going to be a lot of people that will believe that. Even in my team, there's people that's skeptical in our team about the UFO situations. It's interesting because when I talk to them, they say, "Yes, I actually don't want to believe that this is real. I prefer to choose that this doesn't exist, and then I don't have to deal with that. I forget about that. I don't have to fear of what may happen, and maybe in that way I can protect myself from that." But as you say, it's at the same time it's like controversial in the way that maybe not believing makes it easier for these things to happen to you. And I always feel that if there's an UFO sightseeing in a place where the team is, I'm not the one who is going to see that. Maybe that person that doesn't believe in anything is the one that sees that and maybe disregards the situation because they don't actually want to believe that's real.
There's a priest by the name of Father Dan Rehill, like Reehil, if anybody wants to look him up. And he's sort of like the popular guy in the Catholic Church now who is going around and explaining exorcism and demonic possession to people who are curious about it. So he's sort of the face of that. I don't know. I'm not saying he's Malachi Martin, like the chief exorcist or whatever of the church. I don't know. But he had a really great point of view. I think it was on the Sean Ryan's podcast where he was asking him like, "Hey, what's the deal with all this like holy water and crosses and like, do you really need all that stuff to deal with this?" And his answer was like, "No, you don't. Like, you could just walk into a battle with no sword and no armor on if you wanted to. But these are my tool belt, and like whether they're symbolic or like they literally have an effect on in his, he's always going to say the demons or whatever, but whatever it is that I'm dealing with, I like phenomena better because we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But if this causes a reaction that protects me, while I'm having this battle with it, then it would be better to walk into a war wearing a full suit of armor and with a crossbow and a sword on my back and an extra dagger on my leg and all this kind of shit too. In your experience from what you're talking about and mine too, man, for real, I think that the skepticism causing you to just like walk into these situations like with no protection at all, to just, oh, I'm just being open minded, I wonder what happens or whatever. You could very easily find yourself like like in a video game or whatever, like, ooh, you've
Mm-hmm.
stumbled upon a wayfarer on the highway. Do you want to get off your horse and ask him how he's doing? And then like, oh, it's an ambush. Now you're fucking surrounded by dudes that are beating you to death with it. I play in Kingdom Come Deliverance, if you can't tell. But yeah, like that's such a common occurrence where you like naivety, and not as an insult, but just simply like not knowing what the potential things that you could end up dealing with, or just not being prepared for whatever may come, could leave you in pretty bad shape. If you're going camping and you're like, well, I'm just gonna try to hack it with nothing but a hatchet. I'm not gonna take a tent, not gonna take a pocket knife, not gonna take any flint, no matches, no lighter, and just rough it in the woods. Like, you can do that, but it's a lot harder to walk away from those woods not eaten by a bear or
Yeah.
dying of dysentery or whatever. You're listening to KEEP in the Keep. If you love this show and you love supporting indie video games, please take a moment to check out In the Keep's upcoming Stellar Valkyrie. Built in the GZ Doom engine, this retro first-person shooter puts you in the universe of space bird bounty hunter Falco, who is on a mission to save his ex-girlfriend from the evil Black Star cult. Just type birdgame.space, that's BIRD game.space into your browser. Hit enter, smash the wishlist button, and stay tuned.
And there's a stand, like, I don't know if it happened to you also, but when you
Mhm.
walk into a place that there's something that's not right, in a way of saying, your body
Yeah.
reacts to it, right? Like, you move yourself different. There's a different stance on you when you realize there's something else. And that's the protection actually
Yeah.
being triggered. You don't even realize about that. Maybe you realize after. Sometimes I realize at the same moment. This feeling is telling me that I have to stay here. I can stay here, but I have to stay here with a different mood, with a different way. So yeah, it's amazing.
Just to the folks listening to this, if you have that experience, I recommend leaving. According to Barry Fitzgerald, you got about 20 seconds before that wears off and you are potentially compromised. So there's studies with people seeing UAP phenomena. If you have that feeling, like the hair on the back of your neck starts standing up, or you're just like sweating, I'm like, I'm uncomfortable. This isn't good. And then you just like push past that, which a lot of people do. Then they've literally shown through studies, like even putting like EKGs on people's heads and stuff, that at that point, people start to have very different ideas of what it is that they experienced. Whereas if they just saw it and got immediately out, they report the same thing. So it appears that whatever this phenomena is, whatever title you choose to assign to it, does have the ability to change or alter our perception, almost like in a Men in Black way, where they, like, you didn't see that, or you saw something else, and it like makes you sound crazy. Where like two dudes are standing on the side of the road, maybe you and your friend are standing there seeing this floaty orb thing, or in an alley of something, and you stay too long, and hey man, what did you see? And then they say something different from what you saw, or I didn't see anything, or whatever, and then but I saw this. Both of you are actually, at least in Barry Fitzgerald's point of view, both of you have had your memory altered so that you're not seeing the same thing. Whereas had you just walked away, you might have both told each other, I saw this. And you were like, yes, that's exactly it. And that seems to, anecdotally, of course, that seems to be the case. Like when I hear people talk about this stuff, like the longer they stick around, the more and more disagreement there is amongst them, which just causes you to sound like you're a fucking idiot. If you two go to the police and say, I saw this. What did you see? What did you see? Sounds like you two were both fucking smoking dope. Maybe y'all should not do that or whatever. Like, but no, we were totally sober at the time. It's like, well, did you escape from a mental hospital this morning? Because we heard that someone did. No, that wasn't me. Oh, pretty sure it was you. And then next thing you know, you're locked up in the asylum and they're sticking you with needles or whatever. You're tied to the, straight jacket with that kind of shit. You got to be careful with that. But I mean, that's what the research seems to indicate. It's odd times, man, to talk about this stuff, because I feel like for most of human history, there hasn't been like the research necessary to understand it from a scientific point of view. There's always been this sort of like, and not to throw any of it out, but just like there's always like this religious or spiritual lens that this is dealt with through. And now it's just seeming to get to the point, maybe in the last 30 or so years, where folks who would not touch this with a 10-foot pole, like if you're a serious scientist, like, and you start, well, I'm just going to take government money and go like look at the paranormal or whatever. Like they're like, yeah, that's a waste of money. Don't do that. So the research isn't getting done unless someone comes along and does the work and funds it. We're just now at like the tip of the iceberg with that. So that's what's so fascinating about it to me, though. It's like, wow, we live in a really great time where you've had this experience and you have the ability to even look at it through a different lens other than just like, oh my God, the shadow person is a demon. He's, I have to go straight to the church and confess all my sins to, the priest or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, and we had this conversation with the researchers that people or humanity in general doesn't. There's a belief that I personally have. I want to say this is personal belief, just in case, but I feel that humans sometimes don't want to believe that there's something out there that's more intelligent than us, right?
Right, because we're special.
Yeah. That's right. Why are we going to believe there's someone that's better than me? Why we are going to believe that this entity has some special technology that we can't do? If we are humans, we did all this over all the thousands of years we are here in Earth. Why they have power that we don't have? And that's where fear comes. That's when people actually doesn't want to understand things, because if they actually take one step forward and say, hey, this is real, then that means that they are lower, right? They on the scale pyramid of on the food chain, you are not on the top anymore. There's something that's bigger than you. And what does that mean for me, right? As a human being, what does that mean that there's something else that's bigger than me? And I guess it revolves around that situation. But as you say, it's great times with the freedom of information. Now we have a lot of information, so to say, that we actually acquire from different topics, from different subjects, not even UFO itself. So all the UAP, the NHI phenomena, anything, you can actually get the hands of it. But still, people have the ability to choose if they believe in the actual scientific document, in the actual scientific research, or they still believe that's not real and it's just people trying to be famous saying this is real, right?
One of my number one pet peeves in the world is when someone just dismisses someone's research. Is like, oh, that's pseudoscience. And then I'm like, it could be, but like, why do you say that? It's like, well, there's no scientific evidence that there's, ever been any visitation from something outside of this world to this world. Like, there's no evidence of aliens. I'm like, why are you saying that? Like, from what fucking high horse pedestal thing. Like, how did you arrive at that conclusion? It was like, well, I can offer up other potential solutions to that, so therefore that's not real. I'm like, interesting, I not throwing anybody under the bus at all, but like I had Dr. Justin Sledge on a few months ago, and he's a researcher into like esoteric and occult philosophy, and he's one of these dudes that like has 600-year-old books sitting in his house, like that kind of thing. So he's very well read and he's very smart. And his YouTube channel is incredible. It's called Esoterica. But he's very, at least outwardly, very skeptical of, stuff that would be considered by a lot of people to be pseudoscience. So I brought up like the 12 Planets by Zecharia Sitchin with him, and I don't know what to make of that. I do know that the primary reason to be skeptical of it is like, who could possibly read ancient Sumerian? And then even if they could, like their interpretations of it could be wildly different. So Zecharia Sitchin having all of this like deep insight into the the Anunnaki and then they did this and then they did that and this is the way that maps to the Bible. Like I find all that very fascinating. A good question is like, how well could this guy really read Sumerian? It's a isolated language. So like even if you could read Aramaic or Akkadian, that does not mean that it's easy to map that onto Sumerian. It's like trying to read Finnish now if you only have the experience of like other Germanic languages in the area.
Right.
Very different. But he's like, well, I'm not taking anything he says seriously because I think he's just a pseudo scholar. I'm like, why is he just a pseudo scholar? How is he any different than fucking Thomas Aquinas? Like,
Yeah.
how is he any different than Plato or Aristotle? I'm not saying that he's like as great as them. I just mean like, why do you take all of this stuff super seriously, but this guy is a fucking idiot? Or like Eric von Daniken, who I personally really like Chariots of the Gods, not because I think it's 100% fact, but because he presents everything as a question. He's not saying like 100% this is what I'm trying to convince you of. He's just like, here's a bunch of different things that cause me to ask these questions, and why are we not asking these questions? And the answer is because people think you're crazy for even asking it, because we have like a very particular point of view about like, this is how human history went. And it's been a constant, build from cave people to agrarian society up to where we are now. And there's never been anything greater than this. And then I'm like, but what about the fucking pyramids? What about this statue in, fucking, I don't know, somewhere in Peru that looks like a dude sitting in a fucking rocket ship about to blast off? Like, what is that? I don't know, but it's a worthy question. And to just dismiss all of that as pseudo scholarship is kind of annoying to me. Like, it's one thing to make an assertion. It's another thing to offer a point of view, or even just offer a question of like, how do we explain that? And then if you start mapping it all together, then you arrive, in his case, it was like ancient aliens. I don't know. Maybe what we call the gods were in fact some sort of superior being from the heavens. That it all sounds to me like the same thing. It just very much sounds like you're just using different words. And that goes back to Tower of Babylon shit. Like, wow,
Yeah.
they didn't want us to be able to talk to each other. Clearly, Elohim, multiple, but here we are. So tell me about like the types of games, movies, TV shows. We can talk about the X-Files forever, but like stuff that entertains you and maybe inspires the art that you're creating.
Well, I've been a huge fan of horror since always. So I love, but most of the things that I love are horror from the 80s, from the 90s. Of course, I've seen Fire in the Sky. I've seen The Four Kind. Anything related to the phenomena. But besides, I'm not like big fan of like slasher things or movies. Not that much.
The only exceptions I would give to slasher films are like the first Nightmare on Elm Street and Halloween. Other than that, I think they're all fucking silly. But
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. Yeah, I'm more into psychological horror, and even I study to become a filmmaker, so I had to see a lot of movies, of different type of movies. But my love goes for anything that's psychological horror, Asian horror, European horror. Sometimes European horror it's more dark, and sometimes it's like French horror. Sometimes has a lot of gore in it, but there's this psychological strength or aspect, even though it's a lot of blood
Mm.
that you don't find in somewhere else. So
The
I
Scandinavians make a lot of really good stuff. Like
Mhm.
they've got it going on with the film world, as small as they are, and as honestly as the most secular fucking place in the world I've ever been was all over Scandinavia, and yet there's just this incredible art scene. Like Let the Right One In, or Midsummer. Like some of the stuff that they've put out from that area is really
Mhm.
really deep.
Yeah, it's deep and it's different.
Mm.
It's special. I don't know
Yeah.
if different is the word, but it's special, right? In its own way. If you watch, if we talk about Asian horror, people always mention Japan, but Thailand has a lot of incredible things with Asian horror, or even Korea, China. There's a
Yeah.
lot of
Kor
things.
Korea and Indonesia really come up in the world of filmmaking, like, in the
Indonesia,
past
yeah,
15 years or so. Yeah.
yeah, and because their uh the cultural the cultural backpack they have, like there's a lot of things that they believe in, and they put all of that into their movies, right? All their legends or urban legends, there's a whole cultural side that they embrace, that like the ancient cultural things that they still believe in, and they put all of that in games, in movies, in everything that they make. And it's really interesting how those things come up, because it's things that you can actually find on this other part of the world, but maybe people doesn't talk too much about it, right? So all of that, it's part of how I was raised by the TV era in the 90s. Like,
Mhm.
of course, I watch, I don't know, besides the X-Files, I watch Buffy, Angel, and all of that vampire
Mhm.
stuff back in the day,
Yeah.
right? Um, but yeah, I always felt this special connection with psychological horror, and the things that are more uh, or closer to things that can be real, um, in ways that people don't want to talk about it. So I think it's more or less like that. I even watch I don't know, C type movies. In C type movies, it's all teenagers running around and a lot of blood, but sometimes there's something interesting and fun there. Um, but yeah, then I can go back to movies from older times, like the first alien movies, like the when the aliens, before Roswell, the aliens were not these the grays. We have the
Right.
Venusians and all these beliefs that are not common, right? Because after the Roswell incident, every alien is a gray alien, right?
To dig it up for you, but I have a photo of myself. I went to the Mopop Museum. It's in Seattle, and I have a picture of me standing right next to the original models for the giant space suits in The Day the Earth Stood Still, like the original movie, and they're so cool. But yeah,
I
like
bet.
before there was this sort of canon of what an alien was. It was just all, like there. I mean, there sort of was a canon, but it was coming from, H.G. Wells sort of fiction. Like
Hmm.
without there being, I don't know, film, newspapers, photographs, that kind of stuff. It was just people like sort of fantasizing about like what would the aliens on the moon be like or whatever, and like that kind of thing. But very interesting stuff.
Hmm. Yeah, and I actually asked these researchers, like, what are the aspects that you never see in movies? What are the or films or books? And she always said that it's all about the actual, like I said, like the original aliens, right? Like the first information we ever had about aliens, about these people that claim to be from Venus or Venusian, and they were tall and blonde and with white skin, very white skin, and that's something that you don't usually see. Then among time you've seen I don't know, reptilians, or you've seen a lot of different things, but not always it's not always the other species, if you want to call it, like the ones that were actually uh here before the actual grace, right? Before everything that started back then.
Yeah, it's one of those strange things where, like we were talking, I think earlier in the beginning of this, but like the different cultural lenses that people sort of report and view the phenomena that we're talking about from. And there's an argument to be made that like none of what we think is true, it in terms of like photographic evidence or whatever, is even what we're really dealing with. Like Barry had talked about like there are these photographs from like seance tables where you can like kind of see what appears to be a gray alien standing over, whereas in some other situation you may see a shinigami or a jinn or whatever, a ghost, a dark figure, whatever it is. And there's this idea that it sort of manifests to you or to the viewer or whatever, in whatever way makes sense to them, and whatever is the most effective way to like get you to understand it. There's so much in science fiction, Star Trek. I'm a huge Star Trek guy, if you can't tell by the tattoo and all that stuff. But yeah, like this idea that I have come down to you in a form that that you can comprehend, because you wouldn't be able to understand my real form. And even from a biblical point of view, there's this God cannot show anyone what he really looks like, because it would be too much for your eyes. It'd burn your eyes out of the socket or whatever. So you could only view him from the back or from the side, or it's always obscured. Um, and I wonder if just the evolution of science fiction as a genre and the canon that's sort of built up on that is the reason why people see that stuff. It's like, kind of playing both sides of it. It's not necessarily that you're hallucinating and you're seeing something that doesn't exist, but the form that you're seeing it in is influenced by whatever cultural lens that the phenomena itself thinks would be most palatable to you. I don't know. And there's also like, is it trying to, in your shadow person case, like, is it deliberately trying to be terrifying to you? Like maybe it can just change its form at will, make you see it however is the most effective at getting you to be fucking afraid of it. I don't know. But there appears to be a lot of that, especially when you're talking about cryptids. The antler man, the lizard man, the fucking the Loch Ness monster, Bigfoot, the Yeti. There's so many examples of that. I honestly mostly only know about like North American cryptids. So I'm like, if there's more, in South America that I'm not even aware of, I don't know. But there are all these different forms that it takes, and it's like the question arises, like, is every single one of these people fucking, crazy off their rocker hallucinating? Is there a canon that sort of gets bent around it where it's like, people talk about Bigfoot, so therefore in this area people see Bigfoot, whereas if they're in this area they see Mothman? I don't know. And also like, is it something that's like purposefully trying to screw with our minds? And the Project Doorway stuff, it seems at least to indicate that that might be the case.
Mhm.
You seen the documentary Hellier?
No, I haven't seen.
Oh, it's cool. It's on Amazon and I think maybe on YouTube as well. At least the first season was on YouTube. It's just 2 seasons, but a group of Canadian investigators they're going to Kentucky,
Mhm.
and that's not too far from where I am now. I'm in South Carolina, but there's all these ancient stories, even in Europe and also in North America, about people use different words, but goblins or Tommy knockers or whatever, like these little sort of creatures that only come out in the night. They seem to dwell. Maybe this is where we get the idea of dwarves from, also in Scandinavian mythology.
Mhm.
But they live in tunnels and mine shafts, and in that area in the Appalachian Mountains, there's tons of abandoned mines and caves and tunnels and stuff like that. And shitloads of people in those areas have all these like kind of local legends about these things that they see. And so these investigators are just kind of like looking into it, like, what is that? Trying to put the whole picture together because we don't know. But they're like you see it portrayed in even folklore and in fantasy stuff. Goblins are like short. They have greener looking skin. They have big eyes, and they have these little pointy ears that look like that. For the viewers, I'm holding my hands up like their ears coming off of my head. And just the fact that like in multiple places in the world at different times, people have seen the same sort of thing and reported on it, and they just have different names for it. What is that? But that's a really cool one too. But
Yeah, mentioning that, just sorry to cut you here, but
no,
we have here in South America, actually, we are actually in Argentina, we have, I believe, there's this legend called the Pomberito. A
mm,
Pomberito is like this dwarf in a way, but it's like with a beard and has a big belly, and it's like a little drunk guy
mm,
that actually steals children. Like
yeah,
there's been
like a
situation of
leprechaun.
missing children. Yeah, like the leprechaun. It says there's been situation of missing children and situations where people actually saw these entities, these small entities, and seen them run away. Even some, uh, there's always, of course, deep fakes. There's even games coming from here about that special entity as well.
Mm,
And it's like you say, it's a the different belief, but sometimes it's actually the same. It depends on how you look at it or how you perceive that or how your mind wants to um, create that form for you, but it's maybe it's all the same thing, right?
right. Yeah, totally. Like, who knows? But the similarities are just so out there. Even
Mhm.
I mean, like Puerto Rico and Mexico have even in the southern United States, like the chupacabra, this thing that sucks the blood out of goats or whatever, but it looks the
Yeah.
same. It's little dude, pointy ears, big eyes. Seems to prey on living things. Um, but strikingly, like in your case, like there's so few video games that make the attempt to portray anything realistic. It's all I mean, and it makes sense, from a money-making standpoint. You wanna make something that's fun and entertaining.
Mhm.
You have, like, Destroy All Humans over here, and then you have Who Are You on a completely different end of the spectrum of, like, alien video games or whatever. Um, so it's so refreshing to just see people trying to take it a little bit more seriously.
Okay.
Um, do you think that because you said that the game is, like, more centered around the family, do you think that you'll have a portrayal of what the phenomena is in the game and, like, what that would be influenced by at all?
Yeah. I mean, the idea is that you will follow this family till the end, right?
Mm,
Till actually Ray understands what's actually happening, and it's more about what the actual player feels about the game itself and the actual situation. So in the end, we play a lot with what's real and what's not, right? Because you as a player will decide what's real. The idea is to portray the actual situation of what will happen with the abduction, if that's a case that will be solved in the end or not. Maybe all this situation is actually not what you actually see or feel, and you will realize in the end, or you will choose in the end if this was real or not. There's a huge path we are taking with this because what we are trying to build is something that while you work or while you play or experience, I like to call this more than a game, I like to call it a psychological experience, right? Because what we are trying to build is to recreate something where at certain points during your gameplay, you will have to choose what you actually believe in, right? So if you are standing on a place and you see three things happening at the same time, how would you feel, or which is the thing that you will feel is real? And then you will follow that belief, right? So in the end, you will see if if you're a non-believer, maybe the answers that you will see or the ending that you will see will be different than if you're actually a believer, right? And maybe you're an experiencer, and as an experiencer, you will follow the things in a different way.
mm,
um, it's a difficult thing to do, and it's something that we are working on really hard. But was just speaking of me from the team, right? I want to see how the actual gamers experience that, right? Understanding, in a way, it's like it's also research, right? Understanding how as humans we experience and we feel this, right?
Mhm.
Of course it's going to be different if you're a streamer and you're playing the game with a huge audience. Of course you want to have these comic reliefs. You're going to play, it's not going to be the same if you are alone in your room with all these fears, with all these experiences that you had, and seeing that the things that you are playing are things that maybe you actually experience in your life and never had an explanation for. Of course, we're not going to give any specific explanation because we are not scientists, we are not researchers, we are just using what we learn. We are using science and we are using the actual research. We won't be able to give you an answer on why you are experiencing these things, but maybe there's a safe, this is a safe place for you to feel that you are not alone with what you are feeling, right?
Mhm.
This is actually happening. And that's why we want to portray every single part of an abduction situation, not only from the abductee. Like we can do like fire in the sky and show you the scene when you are taken and everything is happening. um, there's going to be scenes that you are going to see where you are going to see how things happened to certain characters, even to Ray himself. But you will be the judge for that situation, right? You're going to decide if this is actually happening or not
Mhm.
within the game, and you're going to actually be able to have the option to see if this is actually happening, why, and why the family will feel this, right? You talk about the feeling of lost. The feeling of lost is different. It's not the same if uh, someone dies in your family. It's not the same if you someone gets murdered, and it's totally not the same feeling of lost or post-traumatic stress if there's
Hold on.
someone missing. Yeah,
We gotta make a little bit of an English correction for the sake of the audience.
yeah.
Loss. Lust is like sexual desire, and I don't want them
Oh.
to get confused. But I mean, people do experience that differently. It's okay.
Yeah, it's lost.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, the feeling of lost. Yeah. But yeah, the feeling of lost is not the same
Mm.
when these things happen, that when something happened, when you're losing someone, but you don't know what happens.
Yeah.
You don't know where they went, if they left you, if they were taken, because this thing happened suddenly, right?
Mhm.
And that's why you walk with this feeling, like you mentioned Mulder with his sister, right? He actually seen that Ray Roswell didn't see what happened, so he doesn't know if his wife left. He doesn't know if she was taken. He's a skeptical, so he won't believe in anything that's out of this world. And that's the struggle for him, right?
Yeah.
Because he doesn't want to believe. He wants to believe his wife is alive. Um, and that's the difference between how he experienced loss between the actual situations that may happen when there's lost in the same situation, right?
Yeah. Um. Yeah. So how are the researchers that you're working for? How have they informed the story? Like, have they had perspectives of like you should do it this way, or like this would be more realistic, or anything like that at all? What's their input process?
Yeah, we actually get together. We do these interviews with them, right?
Mhm.
Understanding if we are on the right path.
Right.
So we show how we are. creating things. There's a whole process, right? Because first we have the information, we get the information from them, then we like the root of it is the actual research that they do, right? They also this there's only one museum that's a UFO museum here in Argentina. They are the owners of the UFO museum, and they have relics and stuff from different parts of Argentina and South America too. uh so they provide the actual research and the actual information. Then we review this with our psychologist advisor, and then we pour all of this into the written story, right? Because we wrote a novel with all the information and trying to transform this into the art that we'll have on the game, right? So then once we have everything set up, then we create everything within the engine and within the game, and then we show this back to their researchers so they can actually see that, if they have any inputs, if there's something we may need to change, if there's something, because information is moving all the time, right?
Right.
There's recent developments on information that was declassified from Argentina, from a special case in a place called Cordova, of people that experiences while driving on a truck, they experience something that could be called as teleportation situation, right? Because they were on a road and then all of a sudden they were in front of a board that was like miles away from they were actually driving. That was a case that was recently declassified by the Air Force in Argentina. Um, so all these rich things help on shaping the game. We are trying to create something with the information that's already out there, because of course if we keep adding information, this is going to be something that will never end, right? As a game designer, I'm also the producer, so I have to cut things because if
Yeah.
we keep adding things, you'll never finish, right? It's a very thin line.
I know your pain a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we always move back and forth. Actually, we are going to. There's a recent international congress. I think that's the English word, right? Pardon my English. That's an international UFO congress that will happen near the museum in Argentina now in May. Um, and the idea is that we'll be able to present this to different researchers of how we are creating this so they can actually see and have an input for us as well. I was trying to connect with different people. I'm still trying to connect with different researchers and trying to look for other researchers, because of course everyone has their own point of view. Everyone does their own research. There's research that says this is evil. There's research that says this is good. This research that says there's no evil or good. So we like to hear the whole spectrum of different situations, read the whole research, and see where's these common points, right, that we can follow, so we can actually portray and show everything in the best way possible. Of course, we're going to miss things. We are not experts. We are just lovers of this phenomena, and we try to understand and learn, and we try to make this information available for everyone, right? Because
Right.
it's not for all generations. Kids are not going to consume maybe History Channel. Maybe someone does. Maybe some kids will actually like to see Ancient Aliens and the different shows that we have there. But maybe they experience things. Maybe there's people that don't watch TV now. Now there's a lot of people that doesn't actually watch TV. You won't see them watching the news or seeing the news, but maybe they love games and they play a lot of games. Me personally, I used to play a lot of games because that was my safe space, right? Because of all the things that I've been through and the things that I experienced, in fantasy or in games you see situations similar to the things that happen to you. So in my case, it was a safe place. So I want to give that safe place to people having different experiences and being able to show that on that way, right?
No, it makes a lot of sense, and it's a very wise way I think of approaching it, with just being open to lots of different people's points of view. But I would I bet a lot you're going to get people who play this, and you'll have folks that are saying like, "Oh my god, this is exactly like what happened to me. And finally, I have this like way of dealing with it, or like seeing it through this, through someone else's eyes. Like I'm not alone in this." You'll probably also have folks who criticize it to hell and say like, "No, it doesn't work like this," and all that kind of thing. But I imagine you're going to get a lot of goodwill. You're going to get a lot of people who are like, maybe they had like a repressed memory that this like brought back to them. They're like, "Oh my, this did happen to me, but I shut it out a long time ago, and I haven't thought about it in 30 years or whatever." Um, that's the power of telling stories. Is that hopefully you can kind of reach people like we talked about earlier, like on their emotional level. Meet them where they're at. And help them dissect whatever it is that they're dealing with. Even if they're a complete skeptic, never had an experience in their life, but like maybe playing this would help them understand like, oh, this is what other people are going through. And have some
Yeah.
empathy for that.
Yeah, totally. And like I said, we are not experts in anything, right? We are not experts on Unreal. We are not experts on the phenomena. We won't claim that. We are just trying to help. We are just trying to uh, set up our point of view and our experiences. Have let people be able to see those experiences. Maybe we are not the best on creating a visual effect, but the idea is that the feelings that you get from that are real, and the feelings that you can get from that, and maybe it's a good way and lets you explain yourself, right? Like there's no better way to explain something that you feel than having a visual aid on what you are actually feeling. And maybe if we are lucky enough to be able to assist on that, be able to give a tool to people that can say, "Hey, if you want to understand how I feel, you can see this," right? You don't even have to play the game or see the game. Just read a little or just get in touch with it, get close to the actual situation, and maybe there's someone that's struggling, right, to express these all these situations that happen to them, and they don't have an actual way to do it. As you said, games in general always provide the fantasy aspect, or uh alien games, there's always this short story that happens in this short specific place, in this specific scenario, in this specific cornfield. But things happen in life all the time. You can be sitting around in a water park, riding a slide and having fun while something is happening to you at the same time, right? Um, so I feel like the idea here is like providing, while using like the classic and some of the classic commonplaces, because the game has like 7 stages and they're all different. It's not just a cabin, it's not just a farm, you're not just in a secluded mountain watching the lights on the sky. uh, there's a lot of things that are going to be involved, and it's also to so you can see the variety of things that can actually happen, and the variety of situations that you can actually experience, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you do you really talk with your family about like what you're doing with the game, and do they seem to like it, understand it, care?
Not really. I mean, I always talked with my mother. She's always proud as a mother, but she doesn't really understand how big the situation is.
Right.
I mean, I can say to her, "Hey, I'm talking with this research." She even is in several History Channel episodes talking about Latin American
Yeah.
situations, and she says, "Oh, okay, I'm proud." But that's it. Even my closest friends, they see I'm making a game or trying to create this experience, and but they don't really actually
Yeah.
see to actually see, right? Like, you're using actual research. This is real. Uh, what we are not trying to believe, right? Um, I feel like there's like this veil on in general. Like when you start talking about certain topics or certain situations, uh, people just take things slightly or slighter more than they should. They won't always actually care about what you are talking. Maybe they are saying something that is really important, and at the moment they won't know because it's not how they want to experience life or how they experience life. So it's totally okay. I mean, not everyone will see things the same in the same way that you see things. Even though as a game designer you are trying to create something for people, for everyone to see the same, right? But you know that not everyone will see the same. As you said, you're going to have different opinions. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people that will hate what we're doing. There's going to be a lot of people that may like or even love what we're doing. But that's part of the situations that we get into when we start to express ourselves, right?
Yep. You're listening to KEEP in the Keep. Whatever happened to the good old days when computer role-playing games spent more time telling great stories than stressing you out with season passes and needless grinding? Call of Seregnar is our effort to bring back the best in RPGs. Play in the immersive world as two friends adventure into a murder mystery that lands them in the middle of a battle between gods. Head over to callofseregnar.com. That's call of SAREGNAR.com for more info. And be sure to wishlist on Steam. Yeah, if you don't have haters, you're not doing it right, in my
Hmm.
opinion. You gotta break a few eggs
Definitely.
if you want to make an omelet. So
Yeah.
um that is, it's just so fucking fascinating, like the whole concept of this project in particular, like like having like real expert researchers on to like help you dissect it and make it more realistic, but also like representing a lot of different points of views and a lot of different experiences and stuff. It's like it's very wise. And yeah, like I keep saying, there's just nothing else like that that I'm aware of. And there are movies that try to do it, and of course there are going to be like your kind of documentaries, and they're mostly going to be indie and stuff like that, like not getting a lot of popularity. So I mean, have you really thought about like the business end of the game design? Like, is this your guys? This is your studio's first game?
Hmm. Yeah, this is
Have
our
you
first game.
published any other games before
No, we
yourself?
actually no, the first game that we started with was this horror game that is set on Argentina, on Buenos Aires, about the actual urban legends that are here.
Yeah.
Actually, we wanted to use a parapsychologist. The whole idea is that there will be a parapsychologist understanding his patients, and his patients will be telling him the actual paranormal situations that happen to him. This is something that we only did a demo on itch.io, just taking one of the stories that is on the subway in Argentina. And then the only finished game that we made is the actual story of Amanda. The like the night before she disappeared, we made like a prequel for a game jam, just a really small game of what happened to her. But it's because we were just experimenting and learning, right? So this will be uh the actual big game in a way of saying, and that we never expected to be this big to begin with. I mean, when we started doing this, even though we had a good feeling that this is something that could be good, we didn't know that we won that the theme horror game jam when we made it. The game was horrible, actually, for real. I mean, the characters barely move because we had no idea on how to do things, how to animate things. We were just learning. Uh, but of course, the atmosphere and the psychological aspect was there, so I think that helped us. And people was getting involved with us, right? Like the voice actors, the first voice actor, she actually loved the game and approached to me. She wasn't even a voice actor, but she said, "Hey, if you need something, you need someone, just count with me." And they got on board. And giving the best gift you can give to someone, that is time. Time is really precious, and gifting that to us, it's like a lot. And I'm seeing all that happen to us since we began with this. Um, because we were not thinking, like you said, like the actual economical aspect, or the actual situation of, hey, we're going to make let's make something that makes a lot of money. We were not thinking about that. I mean, there's always this belief that nowadays when you create horror, or there's a lot of indie horror games that actually uh look things in the way that are more lucrative. Maybe that's why
Mm.
there's a lot of games about jump scares and a lot of that, but we were thinking, let's make something real that feels real for us. I'm a huge
Right.
Silent Hill fan, right? So I'm trying to create something that is really deep, and not something that uh, is said on that side. Of course, we have to think about that, because if you don't think about marketing, if you don't think you can make a free game and that's it, of course, we actually need to eat. Of course, our dream will be, and now after everything that we went through, it's of course being an actual studio that we can actually. We started with this, but we still have that other game that we want to have a psychologist advisor also, and work with actual real paranormal investigation and start. So all the narrative background that we have, right? Um, but we learn about that like in the middle, right? Because we want that, then these people was getting on board, then we were selected for stuff. Last year, there's a big event here in Argentina that's called EVA.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of publishers, even Critical Reflex was here also as well. And there's a lot of people getting involved. And they did this mentorship. They do this mentorship every year. And they selected us for this mentorship as well. We were one of the few 10 to 12 studios were selected for mentorship, so we can shape the game better and understand things better, and that helped us a lot. We also were nominated for best narrative on that event against Star Trek.
Right.
So Star Trek
That's
won
pretty.
on that one.
That's pretty epic.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, being nominated, we knew that we are competing against this huge IP with this huge narrative, with this huge universe that Star Trek is, right? But being there is just amazing for us, and also help us believe that this is something that we can work with and we can dream, and that we can make true. It's a dream that we can make true. So we had to learn a lot about the business aspects. Right now we are doing a lot of effort on working more on the studio itself, because we know that if we want to do things right, there's things we're going to need, right? We can't escape that. No artist can escape that, unless, I mean, if you want to live out of your art, uh, you need to do something else, as we do. I mean, we all have different jobs that we do daily to actually eat. But if you actually want to use all that time to create, and to have that child that is your game, your creation, your song, anything, you need to do something more. So we had to start thinking about that part as well.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in. If there's anything at all I can do to be helpful, I mean, I've been involved in a lot of games being published and marketed and such. So I'm happy to be of assistance. It's good that you're in the Fearzine Discord because they're doing a great job. Like I work with Maria and Dan really closely, and like they're fucking really really good at like doing the social media stuff, and like they're doing these sort of like if you get in on the Kickstarter for one of their issues, yeah, as a developer, that they'll give you ad space or whatever, and hopefully continue to find better ways to monetize and reach more people with it. But just having that core group of like everyone in this space is interested in either making or playing horror
Mhm.
games is makes a huge help.
Mhm.
But
Yeah,
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 reaching as many people who would be interested as possible is going to be it's always going to be the toughest part. You know, aside from making the game actually happen, it's like,
yeah.
and also getting people to know that it exists.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's it's funny because
yeah.
the funny thing is that here in Argentina, most people doesn't know about us. We are known more in Europe and the US than in Argentina, and it's our country, right?
Mm.
Um, and it's also funny because also along the way, like you said, Fearsing is one of the best things that happened to horror lately. The Horror Game Awards, Phil and Will are doing a great job with that as well. I was able to connect with some streamers from the CEOs of Screams. Um, that are amazing people, and they all like I said before, time is the most valuable thing you can give to someone, and just having people that sit with you and tell you, hey, you're not doing this from our lens, this can be better if you do this, or I don't know, streamers play a lot of games and they have their own opinion besides the actual show, right? We had like a little round table, horror round table with two streamers. Um, back in 2024 January or 2023, I don't remember. That's Sas and Sumi,
Mm.
Captain Sumi, about horror, right? Because I wanted to understand, starting with this, with all the gaming industry, all the horror, right? Because, like I said, I come from the movies side. I never did anything like this, so I needed to understand how people feel. Needed to speak with the chat. Needed to expose myself. I mean, I'm not a public person, like I go to interviews all the time, but I felt that I
Mhm.
needed to expose myself because I haven't seen many developers do that as well. Like, there's a human side behind the gaming that most people forget about, like you said, right? Like
Yeah.
separating the art from the artist, but the artist is there, and the artist wants to know also how you feel about what you are playing, because in the end, uh, we are also doing this for you, the gamer. We are doing this. You do this podcast for the people that listen and want to learn more and want to experience more, want to, or have these. Sometimes there's people that has this secret side of them that there's things that they want to learn or want to know, but they have this fear of letting other people know, just in case they don't think you're crazy. But then you have these spaces. You have music, you have movies, books, podcasts now. The podcasts are a great tool right now in our current era, right?
Yeah.
And people sometimes disregard that, but um, it's a great company, and I see how people react to different podcasts, like this one, for example. That's great. We have the ones from the Horror Game Awards now. Scene is doing also their work too, and there's also different point of views that are great and connected with everyone. Me being from Argentina means a lot because we don't actually. There's a lot of fear sometimes of, hey, this is an unreachable person, right? Like, okay, they are in the States, they are in Europe. Why they will care about someone that's in this little country in South America that not many people knows about? Well, Argentina is being known for many things right now, and the Nazi era and stuff. Something that we will be talking about in our game as well. But all these things that are triggers sometimes, right? Because they feel, and we feel sometimes as Argentinians, that not many people like us because of the common knowledge. Sometimes the common knowledge is that Argentina, the Argentinian people in South America, they feel that they are better than the others, than other people. There's a lot of things that revolves around different cultures or different societies. Like the US have their own, like Europe, Germany, the UK. Everyone has different beliefs, right? But in the end, we're all humans or hybrids sometimes, and we are trying to actually connect with others and being able to be open to connect with others and seeing that the other person is actually someone like you, and maybe that person you connect with has some similarities with you and have things that they want to talk about, and you have something that you want to talk about and it's the same. And you realize that when you actually start to interacting with people, right, in Discord, on streams. If you are a developer, this is for developers. If you are a developer, just sit and talk with that streamer that you like, or chat with the people in chat, right? Don't be afraid of what they are going to say. Sometimes you will see that there's incredible people around that are trying to help the indie community, the horror community. That's even uh, sometimes I met a lot of people that doesn't feel horror is good because there's a lot of horror games, there's a lot of crap out there. Of course, yes, like it happens with anything, right? There's going to be real people that wants to provide you a real experience, and there's going to be people that are just trying to monetize something, and they try, right? And of course, it's difficult to get that needle, right? That thing that it's out there, but there's a lot of help right now. And over the years, I feel that these past 2 to 3 years, it's been really good for the indie community, right? Um, like this that happened right now with us, right? Being able to see your podcast on Fearsing, being able to be here and now, just talking and having a nice time while doing this, right? It's a great opportunity, and it's great, I think. Yeah.
It's something about, why do people like indie games? Like, why is there like hashtag indie game every day? And like, part of it is especially on social media, it's an echo chamber of other people who are also making indie games, putting their, look at my indie game, and like all of the responses are from other people who are also making an indie game, and it's like a little bit thing. But the customers, like the people who love buying indie games, there's multiple reasons why. One of them is because it's cheaper. I mean, that makes a huge difference. The other part is that they feel like they're part of it, with you. And if they can have that personal connection with the developer and, get the game that's like not, it's not the game that was made for the masses, like everyone in the world, trying to capture what they would like, like near Disney levels of reaching every audience you can. But something that feels like it was made for me, like, oh, this feels like exactly the game. There's a few games like that for me. I mean, some of them have been AAA, but most of them are going to be like my friend MK Schmidt, like, oh my God, when you made Star Explorers, that was like the perfect game for me. It's like, I felt like someone made it exactly what I wanted to play that day, or something, something like that. But, even things like you're talking about, doing interviews, doing podcasts, putting yourself out there. I really, at least in my own personal experience, like I really gravitate towards things that I feel like I have a personal relationship with. Like, so even if it's like I'm listening to a 3-hour long interview of somebody on Joe Rogan talking about, I don't know, just getting rid of factory farming and being more environmentally friendly or whatever, like I'm far more likely to care about what that person's doing if I can hear them having a conversation and hear them being human, as opposed to just being like something that doesn't really care or even aware of my existence. They're or inhuman in any way. This is a common strategy in social media marketing, is that like people don't really like to interact with just a company. When it's just Wendy's hamburgers or whatever, like they put the jokes in there and shit because it makes it feel more human and people interact with it with more. If you're doing your game studios Twitter page or Facebook page or whatever, it's not It's not like people want to be friends with a company. They want to be friends with the people behind the thing. And just kind of taking that veil back and letting people in is good. Could also be a little dangerous. You might have
Yeah.
the if you get too good at this UFO thing, you might have some men in black, coming and knocking on the door or whatever. Be like, hey, shut the fuck up, cancel this game. What's the
Yeah.
budget you guys are working with? Like, are you paying the bills with this thing, or you got like a grant? What's going on with that?
No, it's just our heart and our hard work. Yeah, we
Mm.
don't have any budget, really. We are just, for now, we are just on the look, basically, trying to work with this, trying to see if maybe eventually we can do something extra that can help us get better. Because the funny thing is that actually the artist work with a 4 gigabytes RAM notebook, right? They don't. Our own team can't even play the game because they don't have the computers to play the game. So
Yeah.
it's we're trying just to do things the best in the best way that we can. That's why we are using a Real 427. We're not using even a Real 5. There's a lot of uh, thoughts revolving around Unreal 5 games right now also about the performance and about a lot of things. We're just using Unreal 425 because that's the actual engine that runs on our PCs, right? So far right now. So yeah, the budget is what we have. Basically, we didn't start making or working on marketing. We are starting doing that. We are starting to receive more help from people that knows better about the industry and that are trying to lead us on the right way, so we can actually start better conversations, so we can actually have our pitch can works better. I mean, we always joke about that if we have the actual power on our computers to do the things that we want, we can be unstoppable because we have the knowledge, we know how to do things, we know how to try and break things as well, but we just don't have the power right now. So yeah, basically it's just for now is for we with what we have and working towards showing people that we can actually do good with these things that we have, and maybe if we can get uh different help, we can be even better and we can show a better things in a better way, right? But for now it's just our hard effort and our sweat.
You should put together like even if it's not like a funding the game, but just like a budget for what you need hardware wise, and see if somebody's willing to cover it. I mean, whether that be you may get a publisher, right, who doesn't have the money to like give you $500,000 or whatever to finish the game, but they might be like, but we could give you $3,000 to buy some new notebooks or whatever, and help you market it. You don't know.
Mhm.
There's all kinds of options out there. There are a lot of snakes in that grass too, but it, mar- having someone to help you with marketing and like porting to consoles and language translations, QA, all. I mean, you guys will probably have at least Latin American Spanish covered, but you know what I mean. Like
Mhm.
reaching as vast of an audience as you can. It's really helpful. But
Yeah,
then,
yeah, we were open to all of that. Yeah. Mhm.
yeah, I mean, you don't know how many members do you have on the team?
Right now we are 7. We shifted a little bit. There's new members because we just recently got an animator.
Mm.
Yes, 7, 8. I have to think. Yeah, 8. We are 8 right now.
Hmm. Yeah, you should at least put together like a little pitch deck with a budget for what you need hardware wise to make the game happen the way you want it to. I think you would probably get people who are willing to help, even if you have to crowdsource it. Like if
Mhm.
100 different people give you $10 a piece, you could probably buy a nice laptop, whatever.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, we were trying to see all the options, but like I said, we are learning about these huge universities, and we encounter ourselves seeing the many tools that you have, and there's people using PayPal, people using coffee. Even we don't have a coffee page, but we were starting to learn how to market that, right? Like, what's the best way? Because we don't want to see ourselves like we are trying to steal something out of people. So it's always when you start doing the crowdfunding or doing the pitch
Yeah.
decks, trying to set all the numbers. I mean, numbers is a big thing for me because I never loved mathematics or economics or trying to have to sit myself going through Excel sheets, right? So we
Yeah.
are getting good at it right now. We have a pitch deck, and I think we polished it enough. But yeah, as you said, we never thought about having actually a pitch deck which actually shows the minimal need there, right? That maybe that can help us trigger something or to start that fire, right?
Yeah, man, put something together. Even it doesn't have to be super complicated, even if it's just like a spreadsheet or whatever. But send it to me, and I'll help you try to get it in front of some different folks who might be interested. You don't. I mean, there might be just some fucking, fairly wealthy guy who really likes UFOs or had an experience himself. Is like, I got 10 grand. I want to see this happen. I've seen a lot of weird stuff with that in it. For a while, Call Us to Ragnar we have a Patreon page for the game, and we had one dude that was like just giving us like $1,000 a month, and we were like, "Are you sure? Like, are you dying? Are you okay?" And he's just like, "Nah, I just have a lot of money, and I like this, so I thought I would donate to the cause." I'm like, "All right, as long as you're not going broke or anything, man." Like, because to you and me, $1,000 is a lot of money, but to this guy, it was like, spend that on wine on a Tuesday, whatever.
Right.
Um, you don't know, but yeah, I'd love to kind of see what the numbers look like and try to help you figure out who and what ways to make that happen. I I have like most of my experiences in like marketing and production. Like obviously I have In the Keep and our games that we're working on and everything, but I've worked for 3D Realms for a couple of years too, and like got to really get a little too close to the flame for my taste of like what it's like to deal with corporate money. And when you're spending
I
someone
can
else's
imagine.
money, it's very different than when you're spending your own money. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So that can
totally.
that can go a lot of different ways, but yeah, it was cool just to, like, have the opportunity to be to see at the larger scale kinda, like, how these situations get dealt with, like, how do you manage a 60-person development team? How do you market a game that needs to make back, I don't know, $7,000,000 or whatever to even break even and that kinda stuff, and, like, it also, like, having to do the hard stuff, like, tell someone, like, "Hey, we're not gonna continue to fund your game because it's not going anywhere," or "It's not it's not right for our brand," or whatever, that kinda thing. So,
Mm,
I it's interesting now after I left Europe, came back to the States, and I'm exclusively running my own company. I'm always gonna do this podcast, but, like, the indie development side of things, I have so much experience with receiving pitch decks and, like, giving advice to people, and then on the other end of the scale, I had no experience in having to ask a publisher for money. Like, I know what it's like to be the publisher who decides who gives people money, but, like, never been on the other end of it. So it's good information for me to have, obviously, but it's also like you're like a fish out of water kinda thing. But I love
mhm,
it, man. I wouldn't trade this for anything. I'm very happy doing what we're doing now. And
and that's the best,
I
always.
mentioned to you, like, after Stellar Valkyrie is done, I think I'm gonna jump in your side of the pool and play around with some of this scary, thinky,
Mhm,
psychological stuff too. Um And it's great to have like Fearzine. They're really great partners. Those guys are great. But networking is everything, dude. Like, is reaching as many people as you can, getting your message out there. Hopefully this helps some. It's not the biggest podcast in the world, but maybe somebody important will hear it. Maybe somebody listening to this will be like, I could buy you a laptop. I don't know. I like this guy. He seems nice. Poor dude, he was haunted by a shadow person for years and he deserves a laptop. Mm,
That's right. Yeah, yeah, and networking is, like, the main thing for us. And for me, I've learned over the years that, getting close to people, it's actually because you're going to learn a lot of things. I mean, over these past 2 years being an indie developer, I've learned a lot, and there's a lot of amazing people out there, like you mentioned, that you can learn from. And I mean, I can't be more than thankful for having this space here, being able to freely speak about my experiences and the development of the game, and having that help or your point of view. It's really helpful, and it's really appreciated, and you have no idea how really appreciated that is for me to hearing this and having that help from you, and having this space. It's huge in ways I will never be able to explain on words, right?
Nah, it's okay, man. It's fun for me too, and also like people have definitely helped me out and done me favors and stuff, and I'm just paying it forward. Like what the universe is kind of moving in that direction. I think like I don't think much of it. I enjoy having these conversations. I enjoy helping people. It makes me better, and the more people that I'm helping, like in this case, it's like if I'm helping you find a publishing deal, it might help me find a publishing deal. I don't know, like you never know who you're gonna end up talking to. Like I didn't think that being posting my fucking weird paranormal investigator podcast in a horror game community was necessarily gonna lead to this conversation, but it did, and that's okay.
That's
it's good.
yours.
Yeah, let's go ahead and wrap this bad boy up. Like I said, if you have anything that I can help you with, definitely send me some numbers or a pitch deck or a spreadsheet, and I'll help you get that out there as much as I can. And good luck with everything. I'll be following along. And yeah, don't fuck with Ouija boards, kids.
No, don't never do that. And thank you so much. Thank you for having me here.
Yeah. I'll see you next time. No spammers. Thank you so much to Diego for being a part of the show. It's really, really cool to, dive into all that with him and to, check out the game. Go grab the demo right now for Who Are You on Steam and let them know what you think. Join the Discord and all that stuff. You could also join the In the Keep Discord. Follow along with everything we're doing there. That'd be great. Or any of our social medias. We're mostly using X, but I think we're on Blue Sky and have a LinkedIn, that kind of stuff. Thank you to all of our wonderful supporters on Patreon. Y'all are amazing, and I could not be doing this without y'all. Going to be rolling out some new ways to support here pretty soon, but the best way you can support is to go tell a friend how much you love the show. If this episode really spoke to you and you want to know more, I highly recommend going back in the catalog a couple weeks and checking out the recent stuff we did with Barry Fitzgerald and also Steve Amera. That's what actually connected me with Diego, was posting about those episodes and kind of how that related to his research. And we referenced it a lot in this discussion, so if you haven't already heard those, definitely recommend them. I think that's it for now, but until next time, I love you. God love you. Stay in the keep. Let's take a moment to talk about Appalachia TCG. Whether you're searching for sports cards, Magic the Gathering, Flesh and Blood, Pokemon, or Yu-Gi-Oh!, they can offer you an extensive selection to suit every collector and competitor. As an official reseller, they are committed to providing authentic booster packs, singles, accessories, and rare finds that set them apart from competitors. They buy and sell lots of trading cards and toys, but their special is the Flesh and Blood trading card game, and they run official events, pre-releases, and more. Along with their ever-growing community, Appalachia TCG is the premium spot for trading, buying, and selling cards. I know what you're thinking, but I don't live in Eastern Kentucky. Well, that's the best part. You can shop online and in person. There is the official TCG player shop, eBay store, and online shop. Head on over to AppalachiaTCG.com. That's AppalachiaTCG.com. Tell them In the Keep sent you.
Hi, I'm Ben, host of the Field and Foley podcast. Every episode I sit down with incredible guests, not just sound designers, field recorders or musicians, but experts in everything about audio. We explore the creative process behind the sounds that shape our favorite games, films and experiences. Whether you're an audio professional or just someone who loves great sound, Field and Foley offers deep dives, behind the scenes stories and insights you won't hear anywhere else.